been a whirlwind romance, leaving Megan a touch dizzy. Tobias had provided practical help whilst renovating her grandmother's cottage and offered emotional support when she had discovered the truth about who her granddad actually was. He'd made no secret of his attraction towards her either, and despite her wariness of his notorious past, his charm had won her. And when she realised she was pregnant, her whole being had well and truly spun. For Tobias, it was simply the icing on the cake, all he ever wanted. He'd craved a deep, loving relationship and yearned for children, especially when witnessing how happy his best friend Seamus was with his wife and 2 daughters. From the moment he first set eyes on Megan, he knew she had to be his. He'd fallen under the spell of her brown, almond-shaped eyes, her freckled button nose and silky brown hair cut neatly into a bob. The feeling he had wasn't just lust, of that he was certain. He found her company refreshing. She often made him laugh, and her quiet confidence gave her a pleasant self-assuredness, not like the brash, overbearing women who had thrown themselves at him. Her interest in his upbringing hadn't been crass. It was genuine, his background being a total contrast to her own. Despite his reputation and all the glamorous girlfriends that had been pictured on his arm, he had only felt like this once before. He had previously been engaged to another local girl years ago. Tragically, she had been hit and killed by a drunk driver, leaving Tobias heartbroken. The press still hadn't relented, choosing to home in on a young man's desperate grief. In the end, Tobias had retaliated and given them something to write about, each exploit getting more daring and outrageous than the next. Now it was different. Now he had settled down. Even so, he was ever mindful of the media's presence. Not wanting to alarm his new wife, Tobias had secretly had the French B&B looked over before arriving, and he had it on good authority that the only guests staying in the 5-star hotel were genuine holiday-makers like themselves. The staff had been well aware of the high profile of their visitors, although Tobias and his new wife were at pains not to give any clues to their status. Tobias had wanted the 2 of them to blend in anonymously, so that he and Megan could enjoy a much-needed peaceful honeymoon. The last few months had been hectic with Treweham Hall opening for the first time to the public, and the renovation of the old stable block into a superb racehorse training yard, which his friend Dylan had taken over. Dylan Delaney was the most famous jockey on the circuit. His dark gypsy looks, black curls and piercing blue eyes made him the most attractive too. His reputation matched that of his best friends Tobias and Seamus, although there had been a shift in the sand of late. It appeared even Dylan was on the verge of calming down. If his relationship with his pretty, fresh-faced assistant trainer, Flora, was anything to go by. Together they were working every hour God sent to make the stable yard work. Dylan was seriously hoping to make Delaney's racing yard a huge success, and Tobias was more than happy to collect the rent his renovated stable block and land would bring. When he had first assessed the estate's accounts last spring, Tobias had been astounded at the state his late father, Lord Richard Cavendish-Blake, had left them in. With mounting debts threatening to close the hall, Tobias had had to put urgent financial plans in place, and thankfully he had started to turn things round. "How are you feeling?" Tobias asked yet again, looking towards his wife's stomach. "Fine, really." She could tell he wasn't convinced, hardly surprising when she had started with morning sickness 2 days into their honeymoon. Once the first few hours of the morning had passed, and after keeping most of her breakfast down, Megan's face had started to regain colour, and they were able to enjoy the rest of the day. Although they wanted to keep her pregnancy secret for a little while longer, Megan feared that when they returned to live in Treweham Hall with Tobias's mother, brother and a team of staff, it would be hard to conceal, especially if she was throwing up most mornings. She imagined the look of disdain on Henry the butler's face and couldn't help but laugh to herself. It was going to take some adjustment, living in such a grand place, especially when comparing the greatness of the hall to the humble cottage that her gran had bequeathed her. Megan couldn't bear the thought of selling.